We are live. Let's do it.
All right. Well, first of all, just welcome everyone. If you're joining us for the first time, love having you here at the Health Made Simple show. The goal always is do the best that we can to just help simplify this thing called health. The truth is, health is simple. It really is. We get in the way. And oddly enough, tonight's conversation is going to show how sometimes we do get in the way. And so all my experience I have on a daily basis and all these different years and all the science I research and all that good stuff, my goal is to bring it in a short period like we have tonight on our show and just really help simplify it and also make it fun again. Health is supposed to be fun. To enjoy good health usually means that, like anything else in life, you work at it and you get to achieve it. And then once you get to achieve it, you get to then decide where you want to go with it. So welcome, everyone. Love having you. And I want to start with some clinical insights. These are, if you're new to the show, of course, these are my clinical insights are just what they sound like. They're clinical insights that I have either during the day, like today that I was in clinic or maybe a day or two ago, that I believe if I share them, there'll be of value to probably most of our ears. And if not ours, maybe you could share it with someone that it would make sense to, because often what happens in a doctor's office is very similar or very important. If everyone had the same lesson or had the same advice or went through the same, kind of sequence of events, there would be value. So I'm going to bring a couple here tonight, just like we do every week. So again, welcome aboard, everybody. Love having you. Thanks for being here. And I'm going to start with our first one, which is which one am I starting with here? 64-year-old female. This is a fun one. This is awesome. So a 64-year-old female she did a consult with me, which is a little bit different when they see me in clinic. This is when we do a live virtual, like a one-on-one like this. They could be anywhere in the country. And we sat down, and sometimes I don't know why we're having one. I do. I get some insight. And no matter what is written on paper, I always start by saying, what brings it here? If I can wave a magic wand, what would I be fixing with this magic wand? In this particular scenario, this young lady says, I'm turning 65 in August, and I want to be in the best shape of my life.
Bart, what an incredible place to start from. That's fun.
It really is fun. And I'm hoping that everyone continues to think with that mindset. Because it doesn't matter the age, right? So she's turning 65 and she wants to rock it. So what an exciting opportunity for her to invest some time and some money, quite frankly, and then start to get a path made out. So here's what I want to report on this, because this just happened last week. So it's not like we had crazy results, right? Although we have had crazy results. And this is what the crazy results are. So I saw her in person today. I had a consult last Thursday. When I saw her in person today, I will tell you, she looked like a new human being, glowing. And the reason for this is when we have a plan, when we have a strategy, and we start taking action toward our desired strategy. So literally, everyone think for a moment here. You create a plan, and it might be far reaching for you. You don't know how to map it out. You don't know how to get where you want to go. And yet you have this idea, and then you put it out there to the universe. And maybe it means you had to get a coach or mentor or a doctor or whatever it may be. And then they help you create a strategy of exactly how to achieve it. And your only job at that point is to take action. And that, my friend,
interesting. It's almost like a relief moment, right? Because you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do to get myself there.
It is. And that is, quite frankly, that is what our healthcare providers should be providing.
Yeah. Doesn't seem to be the shape, is it?
No, and I understand there are restrictions right now in our healthcare systems. Time is a big one. So this is why in that situation, we set out an hour. We don't always need a whole hour, but we block out an hour to do this. So strategy made on how to move, how to eat, and how to think to become the best version of herself at age 65, which was going to come in like 10 months, 9 or 10 months. So I see her just 4 days later, and she's glowing. And here's the funny thing, she's sore head to toe. And she's sore head to toe because she's been taking action. So she started with these fundamental exercises, and she's starting from zero, and she's laughing. Everything in her body hurt. And we were just kind of chuckling about how good it feels to feel the difference being made. So just a little clinical insight there for you, just to share about, doesn't matter where you are in your life. Have a like, you don't even have to have the plan, have a goal, and then find somebody. And here's why you hire an expert or a coach or a mentor, because they probably have already been down the very road you want to go. And that is their job then, to help map out that strategy and that plan for you. And then your job gets really easy. You just have to take the action.
I can imagine that every step that she may take, feeling sore from head to toe, it all leads to the why. Like she understands completely why that is what's happening. So it feels great.
It does. And I think there's this inherent relief that we get, kind of knowing that we're on the right path. And that could be for anything in life, quite frankly. And I think that is a big part of her glowing this morning. So it was so nice to see her. And I've known this lady for many years now. And just to see her in this place at this time, it's really heartwarming. So very nice. All right. So that's number one I want to share. Number two is a little bit different. 57-year-old female, and she has at times debilitating shoulder pain. And I've been working with her now for a couple months, and the shoulder pain went from, she literally couldn't lift, she'd lift her arm with her other arm. And anyone's had shoulder pain, you understand, you might have been in that scenario. So literally, to move her right arm, she uses her left hand to move it. Well, we whooped her into shape. We did what we do, adjusted her shoulder, adjusted her spine. A lot of it was coming from her thoracic spine, adjustments to her shoulder, sound wave therapy, a lot of good things. And quite frankly, she got back to doing exactly what she wanted to do. She's an artist, and she was able to use her arm and shoulder. And then it would get bad again. And then it would get good again. And then it would get bad again. And it got into her head a little bit. And this is a reminder for everyone out there. There's two parts of this that I want to share. One, if for a single moment your body can feel really good, you can feel really good all the time. It may take some work, and it may take some deep digging. It may take a lot of effort and energy to figure out what sequence of events needs to take place. But if it can feel good for one moment, you can feel good for a lifetime. The challenge is the willingness to dive in deep and look at those things. So with that being said, this story didn't go as fun or as great as other stories. So she's doing really good. I haven't seen her in a while. In a while was just probably a 2-week phase, because we were on schedule. We were actually at that point, she was probably getting treatments every day. No, I'm sorry, every week with me, but also incorporating some sound wave therapy, which is literally incredible therapy. Anyway, then I hadn't seen her in a little bit, and then she came in today as if I'm like the truth slayer or something. And she comes in and says, I got to tell you the truth. It's like, I was dying over the weekend. It was absolutely, everything fell apart. And I knew where it was going just by the words she was using. And she said, I got a couple steroid shots in my shoulder, worked good for a couple of days, and now it's just as bad. She's back to holding her hand. And instead of judging, and listen, I get it. Being uncomfortable, if you've never had significant pain in your life, it's hard to really understand what happens to a person's mind when they're in a lot of pain. So I've been in a lot of pain, and I get what kind of decisions are made in those moments. So anyways, instead of like beating her up, steroids are bad or anything like that, I just asked her, well, what did you experience? Like, what did you witness? What did you experience? Is there anything that you could connect the dots with prior to everything going bad? She said, no. I said, what if you had to tell me? You couldn't say no, and you couldn't say, I don't know. You have to tell me something. And she started mumbling. And this is very, very interesting, Whitney. And this is for all the listeners, listen. I ask that question all the time, and I do it because we know the answer. We don't like the answer. We don't want it to be the answer. She said, I didn't do anything. So I made that statement very real to her. So I said, you did not sit down for the last 2 weeks. She said, well, of course I did. And I said, well, you did something. Did you stand up? She said, I did. So I said, sometimes you sat down, sometimes you sat up. You stood up. Sometimes you lied down. She said, yes. She said, of course I did. I said, but you just told me you did nothing. Were you literally hovering? And I said this to her. I said, were you hovering in the air doing nothing? She said, no. I said, any chance, I just happen to know a little bit, any chance you spent a long weekend sitting on the couch watching football? And she said, yes. So because I've had a long history of shoulder pain, I know. I mean, I sat on the couch for a long period of time. The type of numbness and tingling that she's experienced, I had the same stuff. So you sat for a long period of time. That was what made it the worst. So sure enough, she's like, well, I did, but I don't think I didn't do anything. And this leads into our conversation we're going to have tonight. She's not a very good witness of her own health. So we start back
So
at square one.
interesting. And to have those moments of recognition, right? I know the great news is that we can change that anytime. We can become aware of these things, but to be able to hold the space for someone, especially people that we super love, to really have a true moment, it's pretty cool.
It is. And as the conversation continued on, what became more and more interesting, that she was open to the idea. It was like an aha moment. She's like, wow, I have no idea of what's going on with my body until it goes bad. And she is not alone, folks. She's not alone. I would say that's the majority of people until you take a deep dive on the other side of health, which means that you have to take full responsibility. You have to start to look at yourself a little bit different. You have to make observations. You start to become a witness of your own body and your own mind and your own words and your own health. And in those moments are really when we get to make substantial lifetime changes.
For sure. And I think I wish to share that can sound like, oh man, I'm going to notice like all of my bad habits. But I know that you and I know that it's really like you get to kind of love yourself a little more because you're paying more attention to what's going on with yourself.
That's it. And again, we're not even looking for the wrong. We're really looking for oftentimes like, what is the right? Because that's where the next part of that conversation goes. Because a lot of people say, well, maybe I moved the couch wrong or I threw the ball wrong. You know, it's very difficult at times to say, well, what were you doing when it was feeling good? Because we're not trained that way. So that little paradigm shift is very helpful, I think, for a lot of people. Go, well, what was I doing? And then I'll ask them, what was the mood you were in when you were feeling good? And which one do you think came first? Do you think you're in a good mood first and then your body felt good? Or do you think that, you know, like, or was it vice versa? Was your body feeling good, so you're in a good mood? And it's hard to say. So anyways, the good news is she is all on board. She was willing and, you know, capable of recognizing I'm probably not listening that good. I do have a little bit of a concern, and we'll get into this in just a little bit because of what her next step is. And her next step, I'll put it in now. Hopefully we'll remember to circle back to this, that her next step is to get an MRI, and which could be wonderful. But the precursors that I see here have me concerned. So if you can, I'll let you be the responsible for bringing that conversation back.
I'll keep it close. I want to also just acknowledge your Jedi mind tricks, Bart. That's pretty cool to think about what mood was I in when I was feeling good, and like chicken or the egg, which one kind of came first?
Yeah, and that too is something I want to discuss tonight because we often substantiate our mood with our tone. Okay, I'll say that again. We substantiate our mood with our tone. So if we are thinking bad and feeling bad, we'll often use a tone that sounds bad. And when we're excited and we're feeling good, we use a tone that's exciting and it feels good. So that tone, to some degree, is an act because it's following how we feel. And the beauty is that if you change your tone, you can change how you feel. So I want to dive into that in just a moment here. But let me, so you can see how this is an exciting, and I love this topic because it's so real and it's so applicable for every one of us, as long as we're willing to act as a witness for at least a period of time. Yes. All right. So let me dive into the next one. 43-year-old male quit alcohol. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey.
Yeah. Quit gluten.
What?
Yeah.
Power moves for health.
Yeah. Huge. Noticing a lot of changes, noticing a lot of other things not showing up. So today we had an aha moment. He says, Doc, I'm just coming clean today. I'm addicted to sugar. So, how did you discover this? He's like, I was able to give up the alcohol. I gave up the gluten, like I said. My joints are feeling better. You're right, but I'm eating ice cream every single night. And this is real. So folks out there, if you're drinking every night, in the back of your mind, and this is pretty real. You drink every night, you have a glass of wine or two, maybe every night, maybe a cocktail. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, do I get a drinking problem? And one of the things over all these years of running the cleanse that we do, which by the way, for everyone is coming up January 22nd, it's still time to dive in.
January 2nd.
January 2nd, not 22nd. Yeah, we'll be,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, you can do 10, 21 days, either way. So one of the things that we discover every year when we run the cleanse is that people can give up their alcohol for 10, 21 days. Challenge is giving up the sugar.
It truly is. And it's the sneaky thing for many folks.
Yes. So the other part of this, what I want to share is that, so this gentleman in a short period of time gave up alcohol, which he drank every day, and gluten, which was part of his life every day. Two big things. So when it came to the sugar, to me, I told him, relatively speaking, the two things you overcame are nothing compared to sugar. To me, sugar is the most lethal and deadliest and most damaging drug in the world. It manipulates our hormones, and it's very, very addictive. So what I told him to do in the beginning, this might surprise him. I didn't tell him to quit sugar. I told him to take all the options in his house and make them better. So for example, he was eating Haagen-Dazs ice cream every night. I said, tonight, I want you to go over to the grocery store. Down here, we have Publix, or you could go to Whole Foods. But even Publix has great options. So he can go over to Publix. He can get an avocado ice cream that's probably keto based. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than 20, 40, 50 grams of sugar from Haagen-Dazs and whatnot. In the conscious decision making, and when he wins at that one, he'll be able to win at the next one, which is going to be eat less of it and then eventually get rid of it. So getting off of sugar is a combination, and that's a big thing we do in the cleanse. We use a couple herbs that downregulate the sugar receptors, and it's significant. It's why I put it in there, and it's one of the magics we have. It's why people don't get hungry on the cleanse, and it's because we downregulate the sugar receptor. So it's a lot of our hunger is very false. It's fake. It's the sugar receptors begging our bodies to just give one more little dump of dopamine. So for this guy, real simple, he came off alcohol, came off gluten. Sugar is going to be a bigger beast. He's ready for making changes inside the house because he's got a lot of family members, like a lot of people do. So he's going to change out his ice creams. He was literally headed to the store right after we get done speaking. So sometimes
I
folks,
absolutely love his awareness.
yeah, very, very, very honest, very, and again, I don't know if it's just this time of year that there's so much of the small talk goes away. We just get right to the heart of things. And I love practicing during this time of the year because it feels so heartfelt so often and real. And that's the word I want to use, is very, very real. And he wants to make a better life for he and his family. And they moved from one area to this area to have kind of a new beginning, which is beautiful. And he fully recognizes that he is the head of the household. And as he goes, so will the family. And he's taken on that responsibility. I literally love watching it. And it's, so it's good. My thought on sharing this clinical insight for peeps, remember, small changes are victories as well, right? So the consciousness, again, that witness, being able to observe what you're doing and knowing that you're moving yourself in the right direction, beautiful. So
it really leads to other things too, kind of sneaky style.
Yes, it really, really does. And so small victories will lead up to the big victories. So be willing to have small ones. I think so often we think we have to hit these home runs, these massive, huge, big, huge sweeping changes. Well, little ones are great as well. All right. I get more.
Got more. Okay.
Yeah, then we'll dive into our topic here. So this clinical insight actually happened 3 separate times last week. And this insight is about the need to gain weight, So 3 different examples. One is a 70-year-old male who just got done battling cancer, has been through chemo and radiation. That's one. Not uncommon that individual, through all those treatments, they wither away a bit and they lose a lot of weight. So that's number one. The second one is 76-year-old female under constant duress. Her husband is fading fast. And well, I say fast, it's been 1.5 years, but his a steady decline of health. So she's under constant stress and she's losing weight noticeably. She was already a thin woman and now she's becoming real thin. And The next is a 44-year-old female who's under super amounts of stress as well, all for different reasons. So in each one of these scenarios, they have been told by their doctors that they have to gain weight, and it doesn't matter what they eat. And I'm here to say that is not true. It does matter what you eat. Weight is not health. It is not. Being healthy is healthy. And I want to make this crystal clear, because I've heard this so long through the course of my career. Someone go through a tremendous battle and come on the other side as a victor in like something like cancer. And then at the end of it, for the healthcare professional to say, it doesn't matter, just eat anything, you need to put some weight on. If I could headbutt that individual, I would, because it's bad advice. It's not good doctor advice. It's not true. Even if someone says, well, don't you think it'd be good for their minds? No, because to put on bad weight, I'm talking about if you're just eating ice cream and French fries and chips, and that's what people interpret. And that's exactly what's taking place in two of these three scenarios. One still eats clean. And they're saying, well, I'm just going to eat anything to put on the calories. No. Healthy calories are healthy for us. Bad calories are bad calories for us, which mean they cause more disease, disharmony, and dysfunction in the human body. So if you or anyone else you know has ever been given that advice, it's still poor advice. So where do I go with it? Eat really good food, and let's measure your function. So for the gentleman who's 70, he's a little over 70, and he went through I have him doing push-ups. I have him going for a 20-minute walk. We have little measurable things. I said, well, listen, why do you have to gain weight? You're strong as an ox. You couldn't do 20 push-ups before because you were too fat. And we have this real conversation. He's like, well, wait a minute, but my doctor says I have to gain weight. And I said, for what? You're strong as an ox now, or stronger now.
That's a great question, Bart. Yeah, for what?
So why to have to gain weight? So, and then again, so all three of these people were really confused when they said, I have to gain weight. And there's nothing valid about that. Just putting on weight doesn't mean you're going to be healthier. In fact, we know that that kind of weight is just pro-inflammatory, and most likely is going to bring you back to where you started.
I think it can be kind of like this dismissal too of these incredible human beings and the battle that their body has just championed. My goodness.
Yeah. So, and under stress, I want to, because this came up. So the 76-year-old female who eats good, she says, if the weight wasn't good for me, why am I losing it? Why am I losing it under stress? So one of the things that the body does, it's so brilliant that under duress and stress, it becomes more and more efficient. And it learns how, when I say efficient, it learns how to use energy from the best resource and the fastest resource it possibly can. So it may use fat cells quickly. Literally what all of us, so many people are trying to do in ketosis, are trying to burn fat for fuel. They're doing it under stress. So the body's very brilliant, very intelligent. So if we're going to fuel the body, let's always make sure we put the right stuff in the body. All right, I got time for one more, or should I save it?
I don't know, Bart. They're so great.
All right.
I think we got time for one more.
All right, I'll give you one more because this one's a little personal.
Okay, good.
Right, so 53-year-old male, torn meniscus in his knee. And this happened about 14 months ago. And in doing so, opted out of, say, any traditional therapies where you like a surgery, at least in the front end of this. So he started doing all of his own home therapies, all these non-traditional knee exercise, strengthen his knee, forcing his knee to do more instead of less, more, to create more oxygen, more blood flow. Complete, almost like opposite way of thinking. Instead of leave it alone, it was doing more. Very methodical, very intentional, whatnot, using lots of herbs like gotu-kola, which is a phenomenal soft tissue, connective tissue healer, copious amounts of collagen every day. When I say copious amounts, 4 to 6 scoops per day. Really high efficient protein diet, of course, grass-fed, etc. So anyways, other therapies, things like exosome therapy, sound wave therapy, and time, and lots and lots and lots of time. And as a result of it, 14 months go by without really testing it per se, because the very one thing that he got injured on was martial arts, and the very one thing that he knew was going to be his next bridge to cross was going to be to go back into martial arts and go into full sparring, not gentle, not kind, but go into full sparring. And that was achieved. So 14 months after a torn meniscus, healed up on my own. So this 53-year-old patient, I'm talking about myself. And I've talked about it here in the Health Made Simple show, that I banged my knee up a while ago. It's been a long haul. I will continue to treat my knee because it's going to need it. And I will say I went back to sparring last weekend. It was a super, super emotional, spiritual experience for me. I had all kinds of doubts and fears and worries and concerns that were wrapped around this entire thing. What if I hurt myself? All of those different things. And it went flawless, went literally flawless. And I share this one. I think it'll be a perfect just kind of layup right into what we're going to have conversation about tonight, because so many things I learned during that I had to apply, that I've been talking about and teaching about for 25 years. So with that being said, we'll come back to that. And, I shared it with you in the yoga group this weekend. So I'll let you dive into that deeper if you want. So let's take a moment to dive into tonight's topic. I know there's
Bart, but wait, it's such a great story. Welcome back to sparring. That's so awesome. It's like your favorite thing to do.
Thank you. It is absolutely my favorite thing to do. And it is so, and what part of what makes it so one of my favorite things to do, it's so hard. And there's risk involved. And
It's like literally so hard, right?
It is. It literally
No
is.
joke. Yeah.
It is very hard. And there's risk involved. And I think it's very primal. And I think that it exists in a lot of us, men and women, to enjoy being in a weird way under that type of pressure, under where there's risk and reward involved in the exact same thing. And I think the beauty of martial arts, especially when you have good, healthy trainers, they don't make it easy on you, but they're going to make sure that they're not going to do something that's going to intentionally harm you. So I'm in an environment that was safe to some degree, as much as you can for full out, contact sports. And I was able to get back to it, and it felt so good. It's hard for me to explain how happy I was to get back to it. Now I just have to be mindful. And there was so many challenges going up into it. There was so many, when is the right time? What if I do it too early? And that was all possible. But I will tell you, it was flawless. It was flawless. Once I got my head right, it was flawless.
Yes, and I love that so much, because you shared a little bit that there was this kind of shedding of these ideas and thoughts that you had that weren't serving you, that you may have been invited to carry for several months, maybe through like the duration of the healing. But as you got closer to that pinnacle of like returning to the why, really, like, why are you taking all of this time to rehabilitate your body so that you can feel really good and do the shit that you like love to do? Even up into the moment, it's like a little bit you're talking to yourself.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people would be able to relate with this conversation. So often through this journey, I've had people say, Bart, stop sparring. Literally just say, stop sparring. You don't need to spar anymore. Isn't that not good for you? Some people almost like mock me and say, I don't get it. You're a healthcare provider. You're promoting health, and yet you're doing something, that has, a level of risk that is, it's not necessarily in your favor. So I had to go through all these different things. And I had to battle some of my own demons, thinking, I am 53 years old. Should I just give this up at this point? Should I just move on and decide that maybe I'm just not supposed to do this? And so not just the sparring, but the jujitsu as well. And anyone out there that practices jiu-jitsu, you understand that once it's in your blood, if it's for you, it never goes away.
And I think a lot of us know, like, we have our things that feel maybe similar to what that feels like
you
for
have
you,
your
for
thing.
sure.
Yeah. We all have that thing, and it never goes away. And we're always childlike when we're in that environment, or we're thinking about doing it, we're doing it. Maybe we don't move like a child anymore, but we're still having that much fun like a child. So those two things I wasn't able to do. And I kept thinking, maybe I can't do it anymore. And I at times started to justify it. I started to think, yeah, that's right. This is, maybe that was immature of me to, all these emotions would come up with me, all these different things. And then along the way, because it was probably 8 months into it, I was getting better, but I was far from being able to step on the mat again, far from it. And I knew that. And I started to think, whoa, I'm 8 months into this. I've spent every single morning I train, I do knee therapy. Every single morning I do something for my knee. I do these different exercises, yoga, and all this different cool knee stuff. So I started to get in my own head thinking, man, maybe something is wrong here. And maybe there's something else I'm missing that I need to do. Maybe it's time to me succumb to maybe a surgical procedure. Because all along the way, I can't tell you how many times, hey, good friends, Bart, it's a meniscus, it's an in and out procedure. You'll walk out that day. You'll be on the mat within a week. And it was dangling in front of me. Literally, that is the story. You'll be out of surgery that day. You'll work. You'll take one day off. You'll be back to work, and you'll be back on the mat within 2 weeks.
That is a very shiny carrot, Bart.
Yes, very, very shiny carrot. What that story was not telling was that any surgery, especially in your knee, will then start the dehydration process of the meniscus, started of the cartilage, and started of the joint, and you will start a decline. No matter what surgery you've ever, if you had a knee surgery, that is what takes place. And that's why many people who have knee surgeries have more than one. So I had this little angel who's an, incredible, he's been a friend of mine for I don't know, 15, 20 years, but I haven't talked to him in like 10, but he's an orthopedic surgeon. I sent him my MRIs, and I was looking for some justification, quite frankly. I wanted him to say, yes, Bart, the best option here is to get surgery and blah, blah, blah. And he didn't justify it for me. And that's why I call him.
Not give you that. That's what you were looking for. And he said, hold
I
on.
want to justify. So, and we're going to bring this back in just a moment. That is a big challenge that as a practitioner, I see people looking for from their healthcare providers. They look for it from their neighbors, their family members, nonstop. They're looking for their diagnosis, their MRIs, their x-rays. They're looking for justification that allows them, and I want to say this in context, but allows them to take the easy road out. And to really experience joy, to really experience the finest things that you'll ever have in life, you are going to work very, very hard for those. And the harder it takes to get it, the more joy you will have when you get it. On the flip side, without pain in your life, there's no reflection of what's joyful. And that's what saddens me today when I see people so terrified of spending any time in disarray or discomfort. I understand it, yet it requires, as humans, the pendulum must swing to have the most joy in your life. At some point, you're going to have a lot of pain. It's like having a breakup, right? Like when you're 16 years old, you thought your heart was broken, but it just prepared you to be more in love the next time. And if you never experience, you never date, so therefore your heart can never get broken, you never get to have the bliss of having a partner in your life. And this is no different than when it comes to our bodies and our well-being, our mental well-being or our physical being. The challenge, there's many challenges, and often one of them is time. So let me roll through this, I'll call it an aha moment / 25 years of experience observation. And this is about being a witness of your own health. And that'll kind of be our title, how we'll just kind of have this conversation. Are you a witness of your own health? And there's 3 things I really want you to observe, and then we'll dive back into deeper into these. One, are the words that you use. Specifically, when you're talking about your own health, there's 2 ways we use words. We use them out loud to others, and then we got the words that go inside our brain. And the ones we say on the outside are really good relative to the ones going on in our brain. So if we have bad ones coming out and we're out there, blah, 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 and poor me, and this killing me, and I'm dying and everything, man, the ones on the inside are a lot worse because they're repetitive. They're over and over and over again. So I want you to observe, be a witness to the words that you use about anything, especially about your health. And very specifically, ask yourself, are these words that move your body into what we call sympathetic dominance or sympathetic state, or into a parasympathetic? If it is words, things like, I'm so frustrated, like this isn't healing, or I still have this sinus infection, my neck is killing me, and we're using words, now those don't sound good, they don't feel good. We have to become a witness of those words. and this is deep level, but it's not deep. This is surface level, because this is the most repetitive thing that's going to take place when it comes to our health. The thing that sprains the ankle, that's just a moment. The words and the thoughts we have are nonstop. So when I hear people using those words repetitively, my neck is killing me, my knee's awful, all of these words over and over and over again, a little red light goes off. Little ding. Okay. I have to be mindful as a practitioner, because that's just something I have to look for. And I have to start to help them as individuals, maybe start to reposition that verbiage. I'll just give an example. Instead of saying my neck is killing me, you could simply say my neck is talking to me. What's taking place on a cellular level are two entirely opposite things. Neck is killing me. All of those words are just plugged into a computer, neck killing, and you will then spit out that emotion. And the cells contract, your body doesn't absorb nutrients, hormone changes, cortisol is released, all of those things. The moment you say, my body's just talking to me, my neck's been talking to me a lot, then it sounds like a conversation. And then it sounds like, and when we're talking to each other, that's good, instead of alienating your body, which leads me to the second part of this. So number one is being a witness of the words that we have, and words matter. Remember, we can have good words and bad words, right? So if you can move your words into a way, in a way that helps you create a parasympathetic response, which would be any emotion or any word that uses the word love, or operates around love, or brings a smile to your face, or lets you kind of calm down, or think a little bit different, or think broader, any of those things. You might say, oh, I'm looking for the answer, it just hasn't come to me yet. Those subtleties, when it comes to our health, are game changers. Anyway, so
Game changers for
game
sure.
changer.
Yeah. Because you're truly
So
leading within yourself as you choose those words, and you're moving towards one or the other.
absolutely. The other part about that that's been really fascinating, why it's so easy as a practitioner, and for many people out there too, you'll completely relate to what I'm about to say. You know, by the tone that the person is telling you the story or describing what's going on, where they are emotionally. So it's one thing. So, in the tone is more important than the words. So if I'm like, yeah, my freaking knee is killing me, I can't believe it, but I'm getting better every day. And you can kind of say, well, he's not really diving into this whole emotional component about his knee, right? Whereas if I was like, my knee's killing me, this has been 8 months, I do every freaking thing I can, nothing's working. And that's a real statement right there. Now take the knee out and say sinus infection, say ear infection, say equilibrium, tinnitus, fill it in, fill in the blank. My hormones, fill in the blank. All
My
of them.
neighbor, this topic, etc.
Yes. So which slides us into this. So that's the first observation, the words we're using and the tone by which we do it. The second part is the alienation of our body. Really what I mean by that is making our body into the enemy. This is important, folks. Be a witness of your words and your observation and how you are talking about your own body. Here's what I want to start with by saying this. Your body's on your side, it never lies, and it is not your enemy. It loves you, and is the only reason that you have symptoms is because your body loves you. It is the only reason. If you put your finger in fire, it lets you burn, so you hopefully never do it again. We don't like a lot of the other symptoms that we get. That one's like, oh, no kidding, doc. I wouldn't put my finger in fire again. Sure, you're going to burn yourself again before you die. You're going to put yourself in a burning stove. And it's going to remind you, please don't do this. You're going to stub your toe, and it says, don't kick that bedpost again, please. This is why, because this really hurts. You broke my nail, maybe the toe. No matter what the symptom is, that symptom is there to talk to us. So as a practitioner, the other thing that draws a red flag, or I start, oh, okay. And when I say, oh, okay, what I'm saying is I'm looking for how fast is this train running and about to be out of control and potentially make a poor decision too quickly. So that second one I'm looking for is, are they making their enemy into the body? I mean, their body into the enemy, and they start to alienate it. Well, I got a bad thumb, my hands are bad. And you'll start to hear, well, my hands have always been bad ever since I have that injury. And there's almost like the third party, they separate that ailment, that body part. And what's interesting is that this happens with labels as well. You start to talk about your body in terms of not function and physiology and not systems, organs, and glands. You start to talk to you about your body in terms of labels and diagnoses that you received. I have Hashimoto's. So now you have this thing like hanging on your back. I have arthritis. I have the boogly woogly disease. I have Crohn's. And we fill in those blanks with all these things that I have. And there's a separation of, again, that love for thyself and that understanding of that you're talking about yourself. Most of the time, if someone else was to talk to you the way that you talk to you, you'd probably smack them.
That's the truth part. If our internal words went external, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I had these conversations enough, and we had a yoga teacher training session this past weekend, and it's very authentic and very real in the room. And I'll ask people, what are the conversations we have that might not serve us? And people say, I'm not good enough, I'm overweight, and all these things. Now, again, that's what I mean. If someone else called you fat and overweight, you'd smack them. But you say it to yourself all the time. I'm not saying you do, but you follow me. And we say these other things that if someone else was saying you, man, you got a bad knee, that thing's not going to heal. You can't do this. Hopefully it would fire you up. Hopefully it would push a button. Hopefully that competitive edge and that primal part of you'd be like, bullshit. I can do this. I will do this. I'm going to figure this out. So when I hear that part of the alienation of making the body part the enemy, it's like that second red flag goes up. Okay. And now I know there's momentum. You got this fight or flight because of the words, frustrated, angry, can't believe this, and that kind of stuff. And then we start to see the alienation of the body, making the body into the enemy. So that's number two. And then the third one is when we look for validation or commonality. And this is where it gets really, really tricky. And what I mean by that is so people like to conform to some degree, right? So if everyone's moving over to the left, mine will just move over to the left. Then sometimes we don't even know why. When it comes to health, it gets really interesting. So when it comes to health, it'll look like this. Sometimes we have arthritis in the hands. We'll say, well, I guess maybe it's genetic, or we have high blood pressure is a classic one. Well, my doctor says genetic, and we just accept it. Boom, because it's common. It justifies the reason for blood pressure. And we now know that less than 5%, somewhere between 5% and 12% of all diseases in the world are genetic. The other 95% have nothing to do with genes. They have to do with lifestyle. So that justification and that commonality can look a lot of different ways. We can ask someone else, or we're having a conversation and they agree. Yes, you should, there's something wrong there. You should go get this checked out. You should take care of this. They're not living in your body. They're not the one about to get their knee cut off or their fingers or whatever it may be. So the moment we hear someone else kind of confirm our weakness or our fears, it makes it a little bit easier. And in healthcare, we have a couple other ways to justify our decisions, especially fast decisions. We have tests. We have things like MRI.
This might be the place where the MRI would slide in, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the MRI then will validate. Okay. And I'm saying MRI specifically. I've been practicing, we're going on my 26th year. And in all that time, I have not seen a single clear MRI report in 26 years. What that means is every report I've seen in 26 years has had some ailment on it, some abnormal finding. And that's what they're called, abnormal findings. And there's a lot of what happens is, and listen, if you're on this earth long enough, not everything's going to be normal. We're not normal to begin with. So what happens is we then use something scientific, doctors order, MRIs, especially the higher level they go up, the more drastic our decisions might be made. So MRIs are kind of like, they're almost like voodoo because we don't know how they work. You get put in this big thing and it makes this noise. And next thing you know, we got this, it doesn't even look like an X-ray. You can't read it yourself. It needs some other version of an expert. And MRIs are very difficult to read. And then they send a report to your doctor who can't even read them, et cetera. So anyways, and then there's this whole mind thing goes with it. And then if that MRI says you got something wrong, now the cards are done. You lay your cards on the table and say, I'm done. And then you take that next step. Unless you had an angel like I did. I was looking really hard for some validation, some justification for me to take an easier route out. And I don't know if I shared this, but that gentleman said to me, Bart, I don't know what you're going to do, but you got to go do some of your weird stuff. So he didn't even give me the answer. And when people share with me, they say, I've done everything. My quick and easy answer is, no, you haven't. You've done everything you know how to do. But if you keep looking and you're open up to the world and the universe, there are phenomenal opportunities right now to do some healing. And that's if you're only looking for physical stuff. You open up to the metaphysical world and you start working on your mind and energy work. Like you haven't even begun. There's a whole nother world, a whole nother universe on the other side of that. So the three things there. So that validation, that's the part that's most scary to me. So I mentioned earlier that my clinical insight that I had a lady who got good, got bad. Time was not her friend. So not liking this, had a really bad day. And like a friend said, literally her friend said, why don't you just go get a shot? And she did. She got the validation. And when you're in pain, you got to know who your friends are. You really do, and they got to know your typical philosophies and, your values in your life, because when you're in pain, it's very difficult to make really good decisions for all of us,
For all of us. Yes.
For all of us. Yeah. Amen. So, and I don't care how much you think like you're a tough guy or tough girl, when you're in pain consistently, hard to make good decisions. And that's why we need people around us, or you already know that your doctors, your team understand your philosophy. And that which means you would have to have a good relationship with them. So in this particular scenario, the lady says, yes, I went, she just boogied over, got herself a shot and circle back. And it's the same thing. Now she's right back to where she began again and open to the fact that there's another level. So this conversation about being a witness of our own health, being able to willingly look at the words that we're using, no matter how much we justify them, do they serve us? Then observing, am I making my body my enemy, or am I truly loving and respecting what it's trying to tell me? If your best friend was trying to tell you, hey, take a left, otherwise you're going to fall off a cliff, you wouldn't get mad, right? You would say, thank you for telling me this. And that's all our body's trying to tell us, especially the more the symptom, the more it's trying to get your attention. And then last but not least is when we decide that we are going to not only just use the right words, we're going to stop making the body the enemy, that we're now going to justify with a different group. And that's where, so often when we justify, we use things like genetics, or my mom, or my cousin, or my neighbor, or the blood pressure. So all of these different things. So being mindful of where we get validation from and where we're justifying from is incredibly important. When we use things to look for what's wrong, we're often going to discover what is wrong. So back to what we mentioned earlier, to have the wherewithal to ask ourselves, or have someone that's in our corner ask ourselves, and this is where we need the justification or the validation. What were you doing when you felt good? What did that look like? How are you moving? How are you eating? How are you thinking?
Having a warm place to return to, right? Like have a sense of when things are really good, what does that look like? And incorporating those pieces, I imagine, as we talk about these three kind of levels of mindset, we could apply them not only to like big scenarios, like maybe a shoulder injury, but also kind of minor stuff as well, right? Like, so like maybe I have a headache. Where do the thoughts begin there? The words that I use.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds funny. You've heard me say it 1,000 times that I promise you've never had a headache due to lack of Tylenol. And everyone goes,
Not
yeah,
yet, not yet, Bart.
yeah. And people joke like, "Ah, I know that." And then why did you use a Tylenol for a headache? Because I didn't want it. So there's this other thing that I've been able to observe. And I think a lot of the other healthcare practitioners that are been practicing long enough that they're making observations of their practices, over days, months, years, decades at this point. You look at a couple commonalities that take place. There are some people that are seeking health nonstop, and they never get to the point where they just feel really good. And this took me a long time to understand, why is that? Why do some people just never really feel good? And we could say, well, we missed the diagnosis, we missed this, and it was that one, it was this one. No, I believe the reason is that for some people that never feel good is that they've always come up short. They always took a shortcut. To feel really good, I truly believe that we're going to have to be really willing to feel the full pendulum. And that's an interesting place. And again, I'm not telling anyone to bail out on any procedure or anything they're doing right now, but have your team set up, have your mindset set up in a way, or help get someone that can help you develop strategies that moves you in the best direction. Now, remember, going in the best direction does not mean you're always in a perfect straight line either. I love thinking of this lady who is 64, wanted to be her best at 65. On day 3, she's sore head to toe. And that probably wasn't the idea prior. She's thinking, I want to feel the best. And wait a minute, 2 days after this, I have pain head to toe. And she was walking funny in the office because every muscle sore. She was doing like these lunges and stuff and whatnot. She hasn't done them in 10 years. So, the journey isn't always straight. And with all that said, that reminding ourselves how incredible that the human body is, and there's evidence all over the place. If we are willing to, again, step back and for a moment or two, start to really be a witness. It was really, really, really hard, and yet enlightening for me to be a witness of my last 14 months.
And don't you feel a little bit, Bart, that you've lived even more of like the spectrum of what life has to offer going through that? Not to make light of the discomfort, but truly like discovering that aspect of discomfort gives you the space to have the great joy on the other side.
There's no way Whitney, when I left the training session on Saturday, I was giddy. I mean, giddy, like 8-year-old giddy. I don't know how else to get giddy to that level. Like I was giddy in my truck. It was just like full of these emotions so my training normally doesn't make me that giddy, right? But because of the work, because of the time, because of the mental anguish, because of all the doubt and the concerns and the fear, all of that goes in there, all of those things. I'm an old man, I can't do this anymore. All of those things rang true. And if I didn't have that much time vested in it, if I didn't have that much energy vested in it, I don't know that I could have felt that good. And it's just, by the way, when I was sparring, I was getting my butt kicked the whole time. Like I was just getting smashed the whole time. And it was great. Like it was great. And then, so I did a double session. I did 8 rounds of sparring. And then I did jujitsu afterwards. And it was on so many levels. And I will also say, not a single moment of that did I say I have to be careful for my knee. I left that at the front door. I did not. Once I decided that I was going in that part, I work hard with my mind to, like, if I go in, that I've got the capacity to go in, but it doesn't go in. That doesn't work without the training. So there's like a false sense of confidence some people have. Well, I'm just going to ride this out. And we saw a lot of that during the whole pandemic. And I spoke a lot to that, where some people were like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I don't believe it's true. And they got as sick as can be because they're not healthy people. They weren't putting in the work in. If you can have that mindset, hopefully you have a mindset that is slowly building strength as a result of your actions. And so you're absolutely right. Like, did it make it more worth it? It did. And I think if tonight, for everyone that's listening, or you're going to share this with someone, the work is part of the journey. and it makes the end of that journey, wherever that is, and then you pick up a new journey. So now my new journey starts. So now I'm like, oh man, I got to get fit again. Just like the other stuff. And that's hard. It's hard to get like fit, like that type of fitness again. For anyone that's listening, to somehow package up what I'm saying tonight and understand and embrace the journey, embrace the suck, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because
And
the
whatever that,
reward is so rich on the other end. It just is.
yeah. And as much as I'm talking about like the physical, my need today, that might be the same in like digging up stuff about a relationship that just has to be spoken about, that you're just avoiding, and you have to like get through the suck so you can get to the other side. It could be in with spirit or whatever it may be. Yet when you know that it's going to require some work, get excited, because on the other end of that is usually something that's extremely blissful and enlightening. And I think that's, and I've been fortunate to practice for 25 years and watch. So not only did I have that personal experience, I've watched this for 25 years. I've watched humans literally become different beings as a result of putting in the work day in and day out, hitting roadblocks and getting up again and doing it again. And whether it be making food decisions or emotional decisions or life decisions, and just staying on their path because they're absolutely committed to becoming that version of themselves that they dream about. And I've had the fortunate opportunity to watch this for 25 years on both sides of it. I've watched it fall apart, and I've watched people achieve it on the other side. And that individual that gets the chance to achieve it and they put all that work in, they now own that. That can't be taken away.
Yeah, it's theirs for the rest of their life. I want to take this opportunity, Bart. You mentioned earlier that you are going into your 26th year of practice. You're about 53 years old. So half of your life you have spent building up others, edifying them for strong decisions they have made for their health. So let me just say on behalf of all of us that you have helped so much. We are so happy for you. And thank you so much for sharing your mindset journey towards something that feels like getting back to yourself. What I know is there's going to be radical expansion on the other side. Good work, Bart.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Again, and I mean this, and you know this. I feel very fortunate in my life. I get to do what I love every day, and because of these conversations, because of the people I get to meet, because I do get a lot of edification back at this point in my career, and so it's just this like it's just like this circle of love that just kind of keeps rotating, which is beautiful. And what I recognize is that there's these circles everywhere, that there's so many women, men and women giving and doing and serving in their capacities. And there's these circles all over the place. And that, I think that's what drives me, that there's this light and there's this love about life that can happen on a regular basis. And it's available for all of us to participate in. And so for me, I appreciate you saying that. It's been fun. And I look forward to the opportunity to, maybe say something, maybe do something. Maybe my skills or technique help that individual, literally helps them become the best version of themselves. So it's a win-win.
So beautiful. It all comes from love. Well, I am going to ask you, Bart, this last question tonight. What is one step that our listeners can take towards becoming superhuman?
Literally be a great witness. Like you were like in a courtroom and you had to witness your behaviors, your words, and how you justified your actions. And use that information to make your next move.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much for joining us here on the Health Made Simple show tonight.
Yes, and thank you all for once again tuning in. Keep doing the thing, keep sharing it out, keep spreading the love. If you have the opportunity to give us a share or a like on your favorite platform like Spotify or something like that, that would be awesome. Appreciate that. And then of course, we're going to continue to take deliberate action for your mind, your body, your overall wellness. Y'all be awesome.